TG Geeks, episode 43, October 19th, 2015. Marvel? Fox? Who owns what? I don't know, but I am defiant until the end. Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the Two Gay Geeks, talk about all aspects of geekdom and nerdery. Sci-fi, comics, film, horror genre, you name it, we talk about it. I'm Keith Lane, and we're coming to you from TG Squared Studios in lovely, steamy Phoenix, Arizona.
And I'm Ben Raggington, also in TG Squared Studios in pre-El Nino, Phoenix, Arizona.
Yes, pre-El Nino. Well, we have an exciting interview for you today, so we are going to get right to it. And today we have with us and to interview Dr. Christy Hartman, also known as C.A. Hartman, the author of The Refugee, or the Korvali Chronicles. The Refugee.
Book one.
Book one, exactly. And book two is,
The Operative.
The Operative. There we go. Sorry. I've read both. It's just, I remember the first one. So welcome, Christy.
Well, thank you for having me.
And we want to kind of ask you, how did you get into writing, and give us a little background on who you are. We know the background, and it's pretty obvious in your bio in your books tells a little bit about your background, but give us who you are and what you did
for our listening audience.
Exactly.
Give them some idea as to who you are and what your background is.
Okay. I've been writing all my life, but I really didn't launch into fiction until about 10 years ago. I have a very strong background in science. I have a PhD in behavioral genetics, and I worked as a scientist for the University of Colorado for years and years and years and years. So, and I've always liked sci-fi. I've always liked it. And, I'm a Star Trek fan, and I love sci-fi movies. And one day I just started writing a story for fun. I was kind of in a difficult place in my life, and the story blew up into a book, which blew up into a trilogy. And here it is. I'm still working on new stuff now, and I've really found a niche that works for me.
Oh, that's great. I really, when we met you at, oh my gosh, it was Comic-Con.
FanFest, was it?
No, it was Comic-Con last year.
Oh, that's right.
It?
Comic-Con last year, and then we saw you, was it FanFest? Then we saw you at Comic-Con. I can't remember now.
It's FanFest, and then this year.
Then we saw you at Comic-Con. That's right.
Right. Yeah, after FanFest, I went and bought your book, and I blew through it. It was incredible. I loved the book. And in fact, I finally wrote a review of it, earlier this year. But
now, you said that you've been doing writing all your life, so I assume a lot of it's been scientific, technical writing?
Yeah, so some of it's just personal writing. I just love to write. It helps me gather my thoughts and kind of express myself better than I can through words. But also, yes, I've done a considerable amount of technical writing and scientific writing. It's very different, very dry, but, I kind of like that too.
In terms of writing fiction or creative writing, have you had any formal education in the process? And the reason I'm asking is I'm very impressed with what I've read in The Refugee. It's a marvelous balance of world building and character building. And to find something that is so balanced like that is such a rare treat these days. So I'm kind of wondering if you've had any formal experience or education, I should say, in terms of being an effective creative writer.
No.
Really?
That is something that I have no formal education with.
Wow.
I really didn't believe in my ability to write creatively. And so when I did and people liked it, I thought, this is interesting. But I think I'm with you guys. I think character building is the most important part of the story. If I can get attached to the characters, I love a story, and so I focus a lot on that. And because I have such a strong background in psychology, I think that character building is something that maybe comes a little naturally to me. And so, and I like to balance that with the science, because if there's too much science or too much plot, it's a little dry, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, and so I like to achieve that balance. So I'm glad you guys like that.
Yeah, because the one author that comes to mind that I thought did such a marvelous job, and you reminded me of him, is Larry Niven.
I have never read him. I don't
Oh,
know.
Niven is one of the greatest authors ever, and I would recommend getting any of his short stories and then graduating onto like Ringworld,
Okay.
because what he's done is find a great way of striking that perfect balance between not just the world building, because the Larry Niven universe is rich, and he's able to write these amazing, compelling characters at the same time. And that's what you were able to do in The Refugee, and that's what made it hard to put down. Yes, I thought the universe was fantastic, and it had such a detailed scientific texture that I felt like I could almost see it in my mind. But the characters were the ones that kept pulling me in, especially as the story progressed and you started to see, as we got to know them better, I should say, there's an interesting acceleration as to our knowledge, our experience in understanding who they are, and yet the actions that they take to push the story forward, they go hand in hand with each other in a very perfect, almost synergetic sort of way. And to find that kind of balance, like I said, is something that's extremely rare these days.
Well, I thank you so much. That's the greatest compliment, because that is exactly what I aim for.
Yeah.
For people to get attached to the characters and to achieve that balance.
Yeah, and I thought there was a good amount of universe building and enough technical, I won't say jargon, because you make it palatable. You make it...
It's not technobabble.
Exactly. You make it so we can understand it, and we feel like, oh my gosh, we can understand genetics and how it works. And I thought it was great. But the characters, the one thing that I wrote in the review was this: there's a lot of characters to get to know, and Hartman does a great job of character development as well as universe building in a way that is palatable, especially where several races of aliens are concerned. The interpersonal development of the relationships between crew members is integral to the story, as it helps us to understand the motivation driving each one. And it really is. And the intrigue is wonderful. I love the way you have the twists and turns in the story.
Twists and turns. How can you not have those?
Exactly.
That's what crazy, but they love you for it.
Exactly.
You don't want everything to be exactly 100% predictable, because then you don't have any reason for your reader to pick the book back up and keep going on.
No, you got to mess with people, and I think I do even more of that in the second book. I definitely mess with people, and I think they hate me for it and love me for it.
Yeah, the second book is a little more. There's quite a bit more intrigue, even though the first one had quite a bit. The second one, oh my gosh, it's like, what the heck is going on now?
Yeah, it's pretty complex, really. There's a lot going on in that second book. The third one, which I'm almost done with, is I mean, I'm done with the story. I'm just cleaning it up, but it's a little bit, in some ways, more like the first one, in terms of how it's structured, where it builds and builds and gets crazier and crazier toward the end. Because you have to tie everything up.
Yeah.
How long have you been spending? Now, you said this is something that you just started writing just because you needed to get something out. How long has it taken you to... Well, this may not be a really good question, but just out of curiosity, how long has it taken you to work on each book?
Oh no, that's a question I get a lot. And the first one took a long time. It took about 8 years. Of course, I was working full time as a scientist, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and so I had to rewrite it. The second one took about a year, and this third one will take about 6 months, which I can't imagine it taking less than that, because and of course I do have a half-time job as doing science, so half-time 6 months, but I work on it on the weekends, so yeah, I'm getting more efficient at writing them, but I still have a certain perfectionist streak, and I don't want to get it out too quickly.
Right. You want it to be perfect. Exactly. I mean, because if it's not perfect for you, then somebody else is going to pick up on that as well.
Totally.
Have you been able to shop your work around to a publishing company?
I haven't. I'm actually not. In the past, I've published other books that are nonfiction in the past, and I've had a couple of traditional deals, and so I've already been there and done that, so to speak. And I'm not interested in that anymore. I love indie publishing. I'm a believer in it. It's not for everybody, but it's definitely for me. So I'm not going to do that. Down the road, if they want to offer me an awesome deal, I might listen, but I'm not at all concerned about that.
Yeah, and that's interesting because we've been kind of pushing independent film recently. We've come across a bunch of independent filmmakers, and it just kind of it grew out of this show and out of some contacts that we made. So we do understand independent filmmaking, and certainly along with that goes independent publishing.
Totally. Yeah, I love it too. I'm a big supporter of independent filmmaking too. I mean, that I can't even imagine trying to do that. That seems really challenging, but they do it. These people are
They,
so creative, and they manage to get money from Kickstarter or whatever and cull together a movie, and it's tremendous.
yeah, it's amazing. We drove over to San Diego here, 2 months ago,
Yeah.
for the Horrible Imagining Film Festival, and every single one of those films was an independent film. There were, except for the two that were produced, Cemetery Man, but they were restored.
But all the shorts were,
Yeah. Everything in the film festival itself.
Yeah, was independent. So we understand the desire to want to retain independence. It allows you 100% creative control. You don't have big business getting into the way and telling you to alter your work.
Right. And that's basically it. And even from a financial perspective, it can be a better deal if you're trying to support yourself.
Right.
Believe it or not, you do better independently.
No, you don't. You also don't have to worry so much about, I would imagine, deadlines, because we're friends with a local author here, but she does work with a publishing company, and she's always on deadlines.
Yep.
And she finds them at times to be, I mean, for her it works really well because as stressful as it can be, she finds that she's more creative when she's backed into a corner like that. But you're right, that's not for everybody. And if you need more creative space and time in order to get your work out, then I think independent publishing would definitely be more suited.
Yeah. So I'll just say this then. Are you going to be at FanFest this year? Or
No, I'm so sorry. I really want to because I love you guys and I love that Phoenix crowd so much, but it's just not good timing. But I will definitely be at Comic-Con next year.
Okay, well,
we'll look forward to seeing you there.
I'll definitely make sure that we buy a book from you at the
table.
At the table, because since you are an independent publisher yourself, it makes a difference, and I'll make sure that we do that because that it's not like buying somebody's book that was published by another, a publishing house or whatever, that money goes kind of directly in your pocket instead of somebody else's pocket back to your pocket. So
you guys have been so awesome. I'd probably just give you a copy anyway.
Oh, no.
Oh, rubbish. We would actually buy one. We would buy one just to give you the proper props. Now, I want to go back to your scientific education and as well as how that figures into what you've written. Now, clearly, with The Refugee, I've seen a lot of genetic jargon being discussed and genetic science that's being talked about. But in your little bio that you sent us, you said that you studied as a behavioral, you're into behavioral genetics. What is behavioral genetics?
Yeah, it's actually, it's an interdisciplinary field that includes kind of more typical genetics, like molecular genetics, like I talk about in the books, and psychology kind of mushed together. And so behavioral genetics studies the genetic underpinnings to behavior. Specifically, we studied more like psychopathology, ADHD, depression, drug addiction. What are the genetic underpinnings of those diseases? And so that's kind of what I spent years and years studying. So behavioral genetics kind of looks at the genetics versus the environmental influences on behavior.
So does that element figure in are you going to be introducing that? Like I said, I haven't seen it in the book, but is that something that you're going to be introducing, or are you going to keep that more on the molecular genetics right now?
I'm going to keep it with molecular genetics. The book focuses on more kind of futuristic genetics. Epigenetics is something people are studying now, but it's not something that's well understood yet because
What
it's
is that then?
So epigenetics is the study of not, okay, so traditional genetics studies the genome, what genes you have or what, more specifically, what variation you have within those genes that makes us all unique, right? So you study the DNA. Epigenetics is about the regulation of the DNA, what genes are turned on and turned off at what time. So like, for instance, at puberty, we change at puberty, right? That's epigenetics telling those genes, okay, right now you need to start growing body hair, or if you're a guy, you're going to get a lot taller and your voice is going to get deeper because there's more testosterone flowing through your veins and affecting how your genes are expressed. That's epigenetics. That's kind of the future. People used to think that, that how, what kind of DNA variation we had determined so many things, but now we're realizing it's how those genes are regulated that really determines so much of our health and our future and our development.
Wow, interesting. So we all have all of these genes and all of this stuff in us that could be turned on or turned off in a similar way to what you're talking about in the refugee.
Yeah.
In your
and
books is
disease too, like cancers, for instance.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
thinking that
exactly.
because I remember that Catherine, I mean, she does refer to the cancer that claimed her mother.
Right.
So I see now how that sort of plays into it.
just I don't want to pry, but have you had that? Is that happened in your life as you lost somebody from cancer, and that was part of why you got into genetics, or is any of this personal?
No. My husband's father died of cancer just before he and I met. So, and he's been heavily a part of like Live Strong and other groups that do cancer awareness.
Right.
So it's been a part of my life in that way. But no, I'm actually kind of unusual in that I haven't had a family member or close friend die from cancer. It seems like most everybody has.
Yeah.
But it has such an impact on these people that I know, I thought, and because it does have that genetic piece, I thought this is something that the character needs to deal with.
Great.
No, so the study of behavioral genetics is this particular field something that you've been very fascinated with in terms of a personal study?
Yeah. I spent so many years in the field, and I think it's an extremely interesting one and an extremely misunderstood one. People tend to think of behavior as being all learned or all biological, when it's really always both. And I think that people can get on the idea that genetics might affect cancers or diseases, but the idea of it impacting behavior is a little beyond a lot of people's normal thinking. And so, yes, I'm fascinated with it. And no, I don't address that particular science in the books, but I think it's going to come up in future books.
The reason I ask is because you also mentioned a little while ago your studies in psychology. And that's something that I didn't know. I found that quite fascinating, but it should not have surprised me given the excellent psychological studying. I don't know if that's the correct phrase, but the way you were able to develop each of these characters in The Refugee again, I mean, they are so fully formed. And that's why I was wondering if you had done any creative writing. But now that I see that you've got this study in psychology, it now sort of makes sense how these characters could be fully realized in such a way that I had not expected, because I only thought of you as a geneticist.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's a matter of making clear a little bit more about my background and my bio. I'll probably have to relook at that. But yeah, I do have my undergraduate degree is in biology, but my master's degree is in clinical psychology, which is a pretty big change, and I learned a lot just in that.
Wow. That's interesting.
Okay, how many degrees do you have? I'm feeling highly inadequate all of a sudden.
I spent a lot lot of my damn life in school, let me tell you. Yeah, so then I have the PhD in the behavioral genetics, and so I spent a lot of pretty much all my youth in school, and the rest of it studying science. But it has really given me an interesting breadth of knowledge that I think applies well to sci-fi.
It's fascinating. I think you do a great job of interspersing your knowledge about all of those things, genetics and psychology, etc., into both of your books. I loved both of them. They were fascinating.
Thank you. I'm so glad.
Yes, I've only read The Refugee. I haven't read
The Operative.
The Operative yet. I haven't gotten to that one yet. But if it's anything like The Refugee was, then I know I'm going to enjoy it. Now, you had mentioned that this has started off as just some kind of a short story and then kind of blew up. So if I can phrase this question correctly here. In the writing of this trilogy that you've been working on, is this one of these stories that you've had pretty much already mapped out in your brain in terms of the direction of the characters and the direction of the plot? It's going to go in this specific way. This is my end game. Or has at some point during the process of the writing, has any element of either the characters or the plot itself sort of taken a life of its own and taking you into directions you hadn't expected?
What a brilliant question, because that really illustrates how complicated the process of writing is, and that answer is going to be so different for every author. For me, the answer is both. I did map out pretty much, once I decided this was going to be a trilogy, I knew from the beginning how it was going to more or less end. But the stuff in the middle, that stuff has evolved with time, and I have to say that there are things that are going on, especially in the third book, that I was like, ooh, didn't see that coming. And, things that surprised me, that the characters kind of showed me what was going to happen. And so there's a lot of twists and turns that's like, oh, that's new. Oh, wow, that's a great idea. But from the beginning, I pretty much more or less knew how it was going to end.
You just said something that very much caught my attention, that the characters showed you.
Yeah.
Are you like hearing the characters talk to you in your head? Because some of the best writers actually have that. Where, I mean, our friend Jeannie Koch in Phoenix, I mean, she says that the characters talk to her. She's, I don't know how many books of her Alien series that she's written now. And Joe Straczynski, when doing Babylon 5, he said the same thing, that the characters were in his head and it became dictation.
Wow.
So is that what's been happening as you've been working on this? Are these, and being that you're into psychology, this could be a very interesting question. Are these characters, I'm not saying like this is some sort of psychological disorder, but are they sort of coming to life in your own mind now?
They have absolutely come to life. They're very real to me. Do they talk to me or dictate to me directly? No, they don't. But they do have lives of their own, and they have minds of their own, and they will kind of show you what they want in their own freaky little ways. And for me, it's just a matter of, does this feel right or does this not feel right? And it's like, you can sense when you're doing your character right and when you're kind of trying to cut corners with that character. They will rebel until they get what they want.
Right.
It's strange. It's a strange process.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And as you said, it's different for every author. Some authors, they have to have an outline and they have to follow the outline, and they know it's going from point A to point Z, and how they get there, who knows? And then there's other people that have to have it completely outlined, and somebody else, kind of like you said, okay, well, I know we're going to get there, but how are we going to get there? That's the whole story that you're going to write, and how do people interact? And I suppose that when you're writing those characters, as you said, they're going to rebel, so the story can't really progress, or you kind of get writer's block, I would assume, on those characters or in conversation.
That's a really good thought. I never even gave that consideration about how maybe why authors get writer's block by trying to force themselves or trying to force their characters down a specific road when inherently they should know that that's against the character's nature to begin with.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, writer's block can come from many different things, but that is one way, is by trying to force something that's not right for the story. And the story or the characters will rebel until you let go of that idea and go in a different direction.
That's fascinating.
Well, I think we just came up with something to help all writers in the future. Listen to this episode.
Yeah.
Follow the character's nature. That's the answer.
Yeah, they rule in the end. You know, people think, well, you're the author, you do what you want them to do. It's like, no, it really doesn't always work that way.
Right.
Well, it sounds like that in this case, you know, the writing process is very much a mirror to life. It's not the destination, it is the journey.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah. So what have you got coming up? Can you share any ideas of what it is you're writing, or what you're thinking about writing, or do you want to just keep that close to your chest, if you will?
No, I'll share a little. You mean besides the third book, which is
Right. Do you have anything planned beyond this this trilogy right now?
Yes, I have begun writing and certainly outlining the world of a new story. It's going to be a serial, so it's going to be structured a little bit more like a television show, where you have every week you have an episode that leads to next week, that leads to next week, until the season's over, kind of thing.
Are they going to be short stories then?
Say again?
Are they going to be short stories then, or?
Yeah, it'll be like a long short story, 10 to 15,000 words, but all connected to the next one. So it's really a book, but you can read them a story at a time, and it just leaves you hanging until the next one.
Like chapters, almost.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's a bit like a television show with a season. And in this, it's about a woman who also uses genetics to alter herself in ways so she can serve. She does some kind of morally corrupt things, but she does them to help society.
Interesting.
There's a little bit of kind of vigilantism going on there. She's kind of a vigilante / superhero.
So it's kind of a Dexter with genetics.
It's Dexter meets Jessica Jones.
There you go.
I've never watched Dexter, but I've heard enough about him. She's probably a little bit less morally corrupt than him, but yes, and it's interesting because she's parentless, but her dead mother speaks to her, not in a psychotic sense, but she is her kind of sitting on her shoulder, trying to steer her away from amorality.
Interesting.
And so that's the general structure. There's a lot more to it than that. It takes place in a future that's a little dystopian. After a major war has kind of torn up the city, and there's a lot of corruption, so she's got a lot of work cut out for her.
All right, okay. I'm gonna ask two questions. First, since this is going to be done in a serial sort of fashion, how are you going to be releasing that? And then two, you just pushed on a major button of mine. What is the fascination with dystopia in science fiction these days?
Yeah, well, to answer your first question, I think I haven't decided that yet, because I've been listening to podcasts of people who are far more experienced with serials than I am. And it sounds like there are arguments for doing one at a time, to kind of keep people curious. But then there's also an argument for finishing them all and then releasing them upon people so they can read them at their own rate that they want to. So I haven't decided how I'm going to do that yet. Dystopia, I think the reason, you're absolutely right. It seems like everything's dystopian. And I try not to focus too much on that in this. It's not like Hunger Games or anything that extreme. It's just, I think it allows people to explore what if, because in dystopian futures, you take away things that the comforts we all take for granted, right? Whether it's a corrupt government, or, there's been a war and so we don't have shelter anymore, or whatever it is that's gone, it forces people to have to survive and innovate. But it also creates problems that show just how weak humans can be when their resources have been taken away.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes a statement about humans, I think, dystopian fiction does. And so it allows us to explore the darker sides of humanity and what we do as a society when things don't go our way.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'll accept that. I've never been a big fan of very dystopic fiction because I feel that there's been such an enormous plethora of it
Right.
that I become enormously depressed. And I've always liked to believe that humanity is capable of greater and nobler things. This is probably why I'm such an enormous fan of Star Trek.
Oh, yes, me too. Yeah, so they're much more utopian.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm a
exactly.
big believer in the creating your own utopia kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said about that view of dystopia, that exploring the human condition in that sort of way, because there is this, and again, being that I'm talking to you, this is kind of interesting. There is some sort of a psychological fascination about exploring our darker side.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there really is. And I think those kinds of things freak people out, but they draw them in. And in this particular story, this series is not going to have, it's going to be dark in some ways, but it isn't going to be super dystopian. There's going to be plenty of hope. I think she will represent some of that. And then the other major character in the story, who is a male, I think will also represent even more hope. Um, and even her memories of her mother, because her mother, who's dead, was a real like tree hugging type and an environmentalist during a time when the environment has been destroyed a little bit. So I think she is going to allow them to have more hope for what could be to help this society pull themselves out of just post-war depression.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well, I have to ask this question then, because you did mention obviously you have an appreciation for Star Trek. Clearly, you've been a sci-fi nerd, I would say, much of your life.
Yeah, I'd say the majority of it, certainly starting with college when I was a science major. That's when it really kicked in.
What was your quote-unquote gateway? What got you in? What sucked you into science fiction?
What sucked me into science fiction? Gosh, that's such a good question. You'd think I'd have an obvious answer.
It's not that easy sometimes, you know.
It is for me, but I remember it vividly. But
Yeah.
it's not the same for everybody.
No, I probably have a better answer after we hang up, but right now the first thing that comes to mind is when I first left college and moved here, and it was during the middle of winter. I'm in Denver, and so it was cold, and I didn't know anybody, and I watched a lot of TV, and I started catching on to Star Trek: The Next Generation, and I got really attached to that show.
Oh, cool.
I know there's probably a better answer out there somewhere. There's something that happened earlier in life that really made me think, wow, sci-fi is awesome, and it's not coming to me right now.
Yeah. Well, we both are of an age that we remember Star Trek, the original series, on its original run.
Yeah, I'm an old fart. I actually watched it on NBC.
And Lost in Space. And,
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I remember them on their original run, I remember that's when I got hooked. When I thought, I'm seeing these ships in space with people on them. Oh wow. Yeah. So yeah, that was obviously my big thing. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, it's not the same for everybody. Now, looking at your bio, you mentioned like movies like Inception, Blade Runner, Matrix. I find these interesting as some of your favorite science fiction films, given that they question what it is, what is reality, what it is to be alive. I mean, these are very heady topics in science fiction. I thought it was just interesting that you picked on those three.
I love those top three easily, and in that order. And and you're right, they do really make you think, don't they?
Yeah. So that is fascinating. I liked Inception, although we've only seen it once.
We've only seen it the one time. Blade Runner we've seen a number of times. Matrix,
course, yeah.
I've lost count.
Yeah.
Lost count, and every time we watch it, we keep pausing and we start saying, "Okay, now what's really happening here?" Yeah,
Exactly.
we love to do that. And I found it interesting that you, yeah, I'd like to put you in a room with Ridley Scott and have you guys debate whether Decker's a replicant or not.
Yeah, well, you know what? Ridley Scott is the one who's putting that idea out there that he is, and I don't think he is.
No, he's not, because he wasn't in Philip K. Dick's story either.
Yeah. no, he wasn't. And I think that's something that was created by him. And as a film professor around here put it when I went and saw it on the big screen last summer, on the IMAX screen. Blade
Oh,
Runner.
wow.
So
Whoa.
awesome. And but he said that really Scott is notoriously unpredictable when it comes to, he's unreliable about things. He'll say something and then he'll do something else, and like, you know, he's not exactly the expert on what Deckard is up to, despite the fact that he's making the movies. And so you know, I think that's his thing, and that's cool. It makes people wonder, and you can debate it either way, but I don't think he's a replicant.
No,
Yeah.
and one of the things about Philip K. Dick is that at least with his stories, everything is left to be everything's supposed to be a question. He doesn't like to give you all the information.
Right.
He likes to kind of leave things mysterious. I mean, look at like you know, what became Total Recall and things like that. So is there anything in science fiction that you're following these days that you're really like hip into?
Yeah, I've been, all the shows, you know, they only lasted like 10 weeks now. These new shows, they don't seem to last long. But I was watching Mr. Robot for a while. Did you guys watch that?
Mr.
No.
Yes, we actually have. That's
Did
on
we?
Netflix, but we have to see that on the website. We have watched that.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
it started out really strong, but it kind of fizzled, I thought. But I was really into the idea of
Yeah,
it.
we've only seen like 3 or 4 episodes of it so far.
Okay, yeah. When you finish it, let me know what you think, because I thought it started out, I was just awestruck, and then it was like, eh. And then I was watching Humans for a while, which is about AI and some of the morality issues that come in with artificial intelligences. But it creeped me out so bad I had to stop watching
What
it.
was it? Being Human? Yeah.
It was almost human.
Almost human.
It's just called Humans.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
This is a different show. It's called
Oh.
Humans Only.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we've heard of it, but it's not available where we can see it, so we've been missing it, sadly.
We cut the cord, so we have to get
Yeah,
things through alternate means and, you know, Hulu and etc.
Yeah, so I've been, and I'm trying to think what else. I put together a giant list of sci-fi movies that I haven't seen yet, some classics, and then a movie like older ones like Alien that I haven't seen in years and years. And I'm gonna do like a big marathon, and then I'm gonna blog on all of them.
Oh, cool.
All the Alien movies?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna watch the whole.
Ack!
And Prometheus again too.
Oh.
Okay, Prometheus, I'll forgive you. Yeah. Oh, I loathe Alien 3 and 4.
Oh, you know, I didn't. Was there 4 of them?
There's 4 of them, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the 4th one is I mean, actually, I hated 3, and the 4th one, yeah. I won't spoil it. But
Okay.
yeah, it went in a direction that I just like, wow. I kind of get the feeling if Ridley had stayed in control, it would not have gone down that road, which is why I think he's now, he's, you know, that's sort of his plan with Prometheus 2 and 3, as well as Neil Blomkamp's his attempt at rebooting Alien. I think they're going to try and steer it away from the last 2 Alien flicks. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I was just more kind of curious as to what were some of your the science fiction passions. Because it's interesting to kind of get a sense of the person based on the movies that they like. Although in my case, I'm such a hodgepodge, but I think I think that explains why I'm so effed up.
Well, you know, you love everything, and that's why you're the geek, right? You know,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And you seem to love a lot of Marvel and superhero stuff.
Well, I
Yeah.
noticed that you said your favorite superhero film was Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, we love Garlic. We love that film.
So funny. I can't ever get enough of that movie. I've seen it so many times.
Yeah.
I am Groot.
Yeah, we've watched that movie.
I can quote every line that Groot had.
Yeah, he only has 2.
Yeah.
How
I
tough
love
is
Groot.
that?
He's my favorite.
Yeah, there's a lot of those interesting things. Yeah, that movie's just really wonderful. So, for people who want to follow you, how can they do so? Are you on? I mean, I would imagine you are on the social media and other places on the intertubes.
Yes, I am. I'm on Goodreads, so if you're a Goodreads person, you can definitely find me on there. C.A. Hartman. My books are on there, and I will chat with people. I'm also on Twitter. That's my major other place. It's a 5280 underscore sci-fi. 5280 being Denver, and you know, I love to talk science fiction with other sci-fi lovers. I found that a lot of other writers, sci-fi writers on Twitter, are not real talkative, and so it's nice to have someone that actually talks. And
Well,
And
fans
then,
like that too because they love having that kind of interaction.
yeah, it's nice to be able to, that's what it's for. It's nice to be able to talk to people and get their impressions about whatever's going on. And then, then you got my blog at 5280press.com is my website, and I have a blog. I blog a lot about sci-fi, especially film, more than books, because I don't do a lot of reading right now while I'm writing, but I do watch films. It helps me get my mind off my stuff. And so I blog on those. I like to talk to people if they're interested in that kind of thing.
Interesting. Well, I guess I see a future website I'm going to be visiting a lot these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I love I love to talk about science fiction films. Obviously, Keith and I both do. That's why we do this.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and you guys have a lot of, great topics on your show too. I mean, you guys cover a lot of awesome topics.
We do, you name it, we talk about it.
Yeah, you name it, we talk about it. We've even talked about opera. We're pretty varied.
Yeah, exactly. So
you guys are going tonight to the opera, right?
Yes,
we are.
Nice.
Yeah, so
I've never been. Isn't that sad?
Oh wow, is there an opera company in Denver?
Yeah, there is.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, at the very least, I would imagine that the Metropolitan Opera would be broadcasting their live performances in HD in specific theaters in the greater Denver area.
Yeah, you could. That would be a good introduction. It's fairly inexpensive.
Yeah, it's not
certainly.
expensive, and you don't have to dress up. If you find a good theater with reclining chairs, you can just kind of kick back with a box of popcorn and watch watch an opera.
That sounds awesome.
It's actually a lot of fun. I mean, we've seen more Met operas that way than any other. So yeah, but that's a great way to introduce yourself to opera. And one of the neat things about opera these days is that it's become very genre in itself. From mythological with the entire ring cycle to horror with Bluebeard's Castle. I mean, there's all sorts of things there. It's just a matter of time. There's even science fiction.
Yeah, Dr.
Opera.
Atomic.
Dr. Atomic is more sci-fi and more sci, but there was an opera that the music was written by Howard Shore, and it's called The Fly.
Huh.
Yeah. So there's opera about everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I had no idea. You guys just educated me. Okay, good. I will definitely check that out. I would like to try one of those film operas, so to speak. Yeah.
That'd be great. All right. Well, thank you, Christy, for talking with us.
It was so awesome talking to you.
Absolutely. We've just gotten to chat with you at the two different cons, and not very much at that because you always had people coming in and out and wanting to buy your books and see you. So thank you for talking to us, and we hope to talk to you again.
Yeah, hopefully after your third book is out, we might see about having you back on the show again.
And when you get started with your other stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
I would love to come, and I appreciate you guys having me. It's awesome to talk to you.
It was great fun. Thank you very much.
Yeah, baby. They're like two gay geeks. They're together, They're two gay guys, and they're geeks. Is that okay?
And that means it's time for the birthdays. Here are a few selected birthdays for October 19th through October 25th. October 19th, Michael Gambon is 74. John Lithgow is 69. And Jon Favreau is 48. Peter Max, that's a throwback to the time forever ago. Do you know who Peter Max is?
Well, Peter Max is an artist that was very big in the 60s. He heavily influenced Yellow Submarine.
Yes, Peter Max is 77. And Tor Johnson, you know who that is?
Plan 9 from Outer Space.
There you go, born in 1904. And Divine was born in 1945 on October 19th. October 20th, Viggo Mortensen is 56. Jerry Orbach would have been 80. Bela Lugosi was born in 1888.
Interesting that we should be seeing Bella's birth date just the day after Tor Johnson's.
I know. They were both in Plan 9.
Both in Plan 9.
Yeah. And then also on October 20th, Charles Ives was born in 1874, kind of before his time in music-wise. He kind of ushered in that atonality, if you will. October 21st, Carrie Fisher, 58. Sasha Ruiz is 41. You know who that is?
Isn't he in Grimm?
Yes, he is, as a matter of fact.
One of the royals.
Yes, one of the royals, yes. Also, October 22nd, Annette Funicello would have been 72.
She left us too soon.
Yes. Great Scott! Christopher Lloyd, 76 on October 22nd. Jeff Goldblum, 62. Brian Boitano, 51. Derek Jacobi, 76. Jesse Tyler Ferguson is 39. All of these gay guys right in a row here.
Yeah, no kidding.
And Franz Liszt was born on October 22nd, 1811. I only put that in there just because of your mother.
Oh, yeah, she'd love that right now.
Yeah, she always says when her hair gets long, I look like
Liszt.
Franz Liszt. Anyway, October 23rd, Ryan Reynolds is 38. Weird Al Yankovic is 55. I didn't know he was the same age as us.
Well, yeah,
Interesting.
he was in college at San Luis. I think it was in college at San Luis Obispo State University when he did his first in the bathroom recording of My Bologna.
Yeah.
And that I was in high school when he did that.
Yeah, that's true. October 23rd, also, Ang Lee is 60, and I'm going to spare the Frank DeCaro butchering of his name.
We don't need that. Nope. We wish to keep our listeners. We have no wish to offend anybody.
Yes. Sam Raimi is 55, and Michael Crichton would have been 73.
I didn't know he was gone.
Yeah. He died a couple of years ago, actually.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. October 24th, F. Murray Abraham is 75. October 25th,
My man!
John Anderson,
Formerly of Yes.
is 70.
Wow.
Sarah Ophelia Colley, also known as Minnie Pearl, was born in 1912. Pablo Picasso was born 1881 on October 25th. Johann Strauss, 1825. And Bizet? Yes.
Berlioz?
Yes, Georges Bizet was born in 1838. And that is all we have for the birthdays today.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's a party and you're invited. I'm Tim Calloway, your host and keeper of the Mouse Castle Lounge, your weekly dose of news, commentary, and interviews from the world of Disney, served up with your favorite tasty beverage. Drop by and see us at themousecastle.com or just look for the Mouse Castle on Facebook. It's good times and great conversations about the house that Mickey built. By the way, did you know that Walt Disney's favorite drink was a Scotch Mist? I'm more of a martini man myself. We'll see you soon at the Mouse Castle Lounge.
Go over to the Mouse Castle Lounge and listen to our friend Tim. Now, it is time for some listener feedback. That is such a cool sound.
It is pretty cool. Well, we got one really big one here that comes from our good friend Arkle, and this is in response to the lovely problem that Warner's has thrown upon its fans with this multiple continuities, but the separate movie universe and TV universe, and why is that so ugly? Basically, he just says this. I'm just going to say it. I'm totally fine with DC's TV and movie universes being separate. Then he says in parentheses, my stepfather has been referring to them as an Earth 1, Earth 2 thing going. It allows them to follow in Marvel's footsteps without just Xeroxing them. Plus, if the TV shows...
It says Xeroxing.
Right. Plus, if the TV shows continue to do well, both critically and ratings-wise, while the movies are only making money but not any cultural impact, Warner Brothers might just get desperate enough to give us a Crisis on Infinite Earths movie, which, if put in the right hands, could make Avengers look like an effing bike ride. Though, if it's put in the wrong hands, the Cluster F would be amazing to watch from a train wreck point of view.
Yeah, interesting. That he says that. I had to rethink that whenever you told me about this comment earlier this week, and I thought, well, as long as they stay on the different Earths, since we talked about that during the Flash episode, the Earth 1 and Earth 2 and all of this, the different Earths that there could be. I guess I'm okay with that as long as they stay in that context. But if they try to stay in the same universe and bring elements from TV into the movie or movie elements into the TV show, then that's a problem.
Well, I don't think they're going to do that, because I remember one of the big things that oh gosh, I can't remember who she was. I'd have to look that up. But she was a big executive with Warner's, specifically with the movie division, I believe. She kept saying, no, we really want to keep these things separate because we don't want to tie the hands of our writers. We want them to write what they want to write. Okay, I can accept that to some point of view. And I'm gonna give Arkell some credit here. He actually does bring up a very good point that I had not considered. There was some years ago, and I'm talking back in the mid 80s, 84, I think, 84 or 85. DC, in an attempt to clean up their multiverse because it had just become so messy with all these multitudes of Earths and all these different continuities that everybody had to try and keep a lock on, they decided that it was time to clean it up. They were going to wipe it all out in one huge year-long series of comics called Crisis on Infinite Earths, which in the end would give us one Earth, one continuity, one set of superheroes. End of story. I mean, yes, when it was all said and done, there were 2 Supermen, there were 2 Flash, there were things like that. But for the most part, it was supposed to make the writing for future titles, comic book titles, a heck of a lot easier. Well, it turns out that they ended up getting themselves into a huge mess later on, and as it turns out, they've kind of gone back to the multiverse thing because it worked out better. That being said, interesting idea. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it.
Yeah, I understand where you're at, but
I'm very torn by this.
Not being, like I said, I've always said I'm not a comic book. I never read comic books to any extent. I'm okay with having 2 different universes as long as they stay separate.
Well, they're going to have to. Now, one slight bit of concern, and we just have to kind of wait and see on this, is there regarding Supergirl, the TV series coming up. Now, that seems to be something of an anomaly all on its own. We're not sure where that sits yet.
Yeah, but that's CBS, too.
I know, but it's all under the CW umbrella, or CBS umbrella, actually, because CW is sort of connected to CBS. And it's being produced by Greg Berlanti and the other showrunners for Arrow and Flash. And we're under the impression that Supergirl is part of the same Arrow and Flash universe that we're seeing on the CW, although we're not going to see much bleed over, if any. However, there was a clip that was shown in the Supergirl teaser trailer that CBS ran, and there appeared to be a glimpse of Superman as he is in the Man of Steel.
Interesting.
But that could be just publicity purposes only. We don't know yet. We just have to wait and see how that's going to play out. I am keeping an open mind on this. I mean, I will see Dawn of Justice because I'm very, very curious about it. I think along with a lot of other people, the only reason we're having such a big knee-jerk reaction is because of the casting for The Flash and the way they're handling it. I mean, let's go back to that whole tech suit thing that supposedly got leaked. That's a horrible idea. I don't know. I think it looks absolutely dreadful. And then add to the fact that the actor that they've got cast to play the Flash in the movie, I mean, there was a lot of concern that Grant Gustin was a little bit too young for the CW series, but this guy looks like he's maybe just out of high school for the Warner Brothers film. So I think a lot of people are a little, I think what it is fans are protective in some way.
Yeah,
they're protective of the properties that they love, and I am, and I know that you are, because we've discussed this. We mentioned it a week or so ago, how much we really like the Flash series.
Yeah.
And a lot of that stems from the fact that they have an amazing cast, and Grant Gustin is just one heck of an amazing actor. I mean, the scenes that those really emotional scenes that he's got with Joe and that he has with his dad and with everybody else on Team Flash. I mean, those come from a really in the stomach, deep in the gut kind of place. And Grant Gustin has just done such an amazing job that I think now fandom has pretty much accepted, okay, this is our Flash. He's our man. And now you're saying, oh, Warner Brothers is saying, oh, wait, surprise, here's somebody else for you to take a look at. I mean, I suppose we could look at it as a reboot.
Yeah,
Consider the
possibly.
movies to be a form of reboot rage.
Yeah, we could look at it that way.
Like I said, I'm gonna wait and see. I will keep an open mind. In the end, it really comes down to, will they tell a good story?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I mean, that's really what it's all about. Are they going to tell a good story or not? I mean, I hope they do. I would like it if they do. We'll just have to kind of wait and see how that's going to play out. But yeah, Arkle, I'll give you a tip of the hat. You brought up a very, very good point. You know, looking at it as multiple universes kind of thing, not a bad thought. But if they do a Crisis, then by God, I want to see Stephen Amell and Grant Gustin show up in the films if they decide to go down that road.
Yep.
So for right now, that's the feedback that we've got for now. We'll have some a little bit later in the show, but for now, that's what we've got.
Yeah, we have some articles that we're going to follow up on, and we got some feedback on those. So that is our feedback. And if you like our show or you dislike our show, you want to comment on it or comment on the show or on anything on our Facebook page or on the website, feel free to comment on the Facebook page or YouTube episodes or even at tggeeks.com. You could receive a shout out on a future episode, or you can call our listener feedback line and we'll play your comment on air. That's 469-TG-Geeks, 469-844-3357.
This is Mark Biaggi, and you're listening to the Two Gay Geeks webcast. You name it, they'll talk about it.
Okay, we got some stories here that are, let's just say they will definitely start some conversation. The first one, and this one just as of today, and today we're recording this on Saturday, October 17th. So Friday, October 16th.
Yesterday evening.
Yesterday evening as far as recording right now is concerned.
Yeah, so it was Friday evening.
Friday evening, a really, really big story broke, and that is our favorite channel, Sci-Fi, has given defiance to Axe. They give the show
3 seasons.
After 3 seasons, they gave the series its walking papers, and this came from the Hollywood Reporter, and this is sort of what we've got here. Sci-Fi, along with Universal Cable Productions parent, NBC Universal, they made a historic $100 million gamble on Defiance when it debuted in 2013. As the first TV series and video game to launch in tandem, the experiment created the most expensive series in the cable network's history, and at a time with an equally pricey, massively multiplayer online video game, the series needed both viewers and gamers to invest time in both in order to justify the franchise's future. Yes, the series was groundbreaking. Now, I remember when, back in our Slice of Sci-Fi days, we interviewed the actress, gosh darn it, and do not remember her name, but she was the daughter to Rafe.
Right. So we interviewed several of the cast.
Yes, and one of the things that we had learned is that the entire series, or at least the first season, had been completely filmed.
Right.
And what we kind of got out of this is that then they pitched it. It's like, that was one heck of a gamble.
Yeah. So it was good the first couple of seasons.
And
this season got a little dark, and we haven't finished watching it. So.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that we've got the last 2 episodes of season 3. We have it. It's recorded. It's in our iTunes library. We just not have watched it yet. And why is that? I mean, is it because it just got dark? Or
I thought it was a little too dark. I just didn't like where it was going.
So. Or did it become uninteresting?
Sort of that too. They kind of they wrote themselves in a corner, I think, and didn't know how to get out.
To me, they just weren't writing anything compelling.
Yeah. So anyway,
it was
canceled.
Yeah,
so
it got canceled.
too bad.
Now, what is very interesting about this is the decision to cancel Defiance and how this all came about. The decision came days after Sci-Fi gave the axe to Dominion, which aired only 2 seasons, and that was all part of this first wave of new orders to come from Sci-Fi, as lately they've been trying to renew its focus on science fiction fare. Now, I find this puzzling in that despite what we think about Defiance, don't tell me it's not science fiction, because it really was.
Right.
I think what they're trying to do is maybe they're looking at more space opera kind of stuff, and Defiance was very Earth related. I mean, a lot of it. I mean, there was
dystopian,
some. Yeah, it was, but it was very Earth centered.
Post-apocalyptic.
Oh,
Post-apocalyptic.
supercalifragilistic. Yeah, whatever.
Exactly.
But it was still science fiction. I mean, there was a definite sci-fi element. I mean, there are ships in space. There are aliens. I mean, let's be honest. It is a science fiction show. And everything that I had heard is that this 4th season was finally going to take the series into space. That was the plan. And now it's not getting a chance to finally come to fruition. The series had a 4-year plan, and it kind of got axed. And had, right now I have no interest in seeing episodes, the last 2 episodes of season 3. Now, I mean, I was reluctant to, but I was prepared to, had season 4 been given the announcement. But now that this has happened, whatever. What I do find interesting in all of this, though, are some of the orders that Sci-Fi gave in light of this cancellation. Now, they've given a green light on The Expanse, which is already getting a lot of very, very, very positive press from critics. They're loving it to no end. One that I'm really excited about, A Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. Childhood's End is an amazing story, and Arthur C. Clarke, at least as far as writing novels go, he really is he was always able to touch nerves about very, very significant issues, especially when it comes to kind of like the human condition. How do we respond in certain circumstances? And I think this is one of them. Childhood's End is a brilliant, brilliant book. I know it had been attempted a number of times, and right now, Sci-Fi is doing it. I've seen trailers for it. We've posted those trailers on our website. Take a look at them if you can. This is something I'm very, very excited about to see. And both of those are going to be due in December, as well as a freshman series or freshman seasons of The Magicians and Hunters. Those are going to be due in 2016, as well as the returning of Season 2 of 12 Monkeys, Killjoys, and Dark Matter. Now, this is what has me very interested. They are developing something called Incorporated, which comes from the production company of Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. They are producing a series called Hyperion. They are doing Brave New World.
Wow.
Now, you want to talk about dystopia.
And post-apocalyptic.
Well, no, it's not post-apocalyptic. Not really. Not from what I recall. I mean, it's been a long time. I read that in high school. But it's very dystopic. But no, there's no apocalypse like Defiance has. I mean, it's just society just goes in this one particular direction, and we end up with something really horrible in terms of caste systems. So that's what Brave New World is going to give us. And then one that I'm really boggled over, 3001: The Final Odyssey.
What?
Yeah, I'm very, very perturbed by this one, because there is a chapter between this and the movie 2010. There's a third book that Clarke wrote called 2064, and if I recall my stories correctly, because I haven't read these in a very, very long time, I think 2064 actually reintroduces a key character from 2001. So, and that character, I believe, is in 3001. So they're going to have to do some retconning, or they're going to have to take some of the story elements out of 2064 and shoehorn them into 3001.
Well, they can do anything they want.
They
Clark's
can.
Dead, so.
Yeah. Clark's dead, so it's not a real big issue. But I'm a little, again, puzzled. Why are you doing 3001? It was not regarded as a very good story.
Yeah.
People didn't really like it that much. So I'm puzzled why they're going to do that. And the final one, and you and I talked about this at great length, they're doing a prequel to Superman, and they're calling it Krypton.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
I really don't know what to think about that.
That's got a built-in expiration date.
Well, yeah, it does, obviously.
And what the hell are they going to do?
Yeah. How far do we go back in Krypton's history? I mean, we're really going into some pretty murky waters. It's not like creating an independent series or totally original where all bets are off the table.
Krypton, desert planet.
No, God, no. No, absolutely
From the
not.
beginning. In the beginning.
But the problem, though, is that when you're doing an original series like Killjoys or Dark Matter, you have absolutely no ties to anything. You can make that series go in any direction you want it to do. With Krypton, there is an endpoint. We know that. And that's at the time of Jor-El, Lara, and Kal-El. And obviously the destruction of Krypton. So you do have this endpoint that you are now forced to go to. That could tie your hands creatively a little bit. I mean, I'll keep an open mind and I'll watch it. It could be good. Just have to wait and see. It was very shocking when I saw that.
Yep.
And oddly enough, there has been very little talk about those new shows that are coming out. However, there was a little bit of feedback regarding the cancellation of Defiance. And let's see, our good friend Pia Thrasher, and you can see her on Twitter, @Pia Thrasher. She simply wrote, "Aw, bummer." And then a friend of mine that I've known for a number of years, Alice Harper, she simply wrote, "I have never heard of this show." But that made me think, could that be part of the reason why this series never, no, not to say never, I mean, obviously it got renewed twice. Could that be part of the reason why this show got canceled?
Well, we were sort of, as you say, in the business, so we knew about it.
Yeah, that's true.
And it did air at an odd time, so.
Well, it was
It was on Fridays.
It started on Fridays, 9 o'clock our time, if I remember correctly.
So it was oddball time.
So, yeah, but with time shifting, everybody does now with their recording devices. I mean, that's really sort of irrelevant now.
Yeah.
So I really don't think that's a problem. It doesn't sound like people were watching it at all.
Yeah, and you had to kind of be there from the beginning to understand the whole series, too. And that may have been part of,
Well, something else that just now came to mind, and that is Defiance came about at a time before they decided to renew their attempts at space opera.
Right.
And at this time, the channel was very much into what I call fake reality TV, things like Ghost Hunters and all that sort of stuff.
Sharknado.
As well, yeah, well, no, not Sharknado. No. No, Sharknado was actually a massive hit for the channel, so we're not counting that. No, but and that's no, absolutely not. No, but things like Ghost Hunters, there were a couple of other TV shows like that were trying to pass themselves off as reality TV when in reality they were not. And then you also had the professional wrestling aspect, which had really reared its head in a very high manner there. And I think a lot of people started to just abandon the channel, stopped watching whatever it was that they were programming there. And I think as a result, people just didn't jump on the Defiance bandwagon.
Yep.
So that's a possibility. Now, another story that also came to light, and that was this whole 20th Century Fox possibly selling the film rights to Fantastic Four back to Marvel.
It was such a rumor. It blew up the internet.
It did. It broke the internet, and that was a couple of days ago. Everywhere you turn, it was initially reported by Den of Geek, who are, for the most part, pretty responsible. I mean, most of what they report is pretty good.
Well, but I think they reported it as being a rumor, as an overheard fourth generation party
Well,
thing
I never
that they overheard something like that.
I never saw what Den of Geek wrote.
I
never saw what they wrote. I saw what other people were writing, and they kept referring back to Den of Geek. And the implication was that this was a 99% done deal.
Mhm.
But it turns out not so. Comicbook.com had been contacted by 20th Century Fox, and that is that, no, they're holding on to the film rights for Fantastic Four. So that pretty much did it. But what makes this story so incredibly interesting is the fan reaction. The way people went completely overboard in the hopes that Fantastic Four was going to be going back to Marvel.
Yeah.
And I have to wonder if that's got anything to do with the very, very mediocre Fantastic Four film that 20th Century Fox put out a month or so ago.
Could be. You never know.
I thought it was, the movie, well, my review is available. I didn't think it was all that great. I thought it was highly disappointing. They missed the boat in a lot of places. Plus, they had a lot of production problems. So it's hard to say. Now, we did get some feedback from our good friend Crazy Joe regarding the Fantastic Four. And he simply writes this: Fox just isn't giving up this illusions that they're making a Fantastic Four sequel that we all know will never happen.
Yeah.
So
who knows?
So, Joe, are you saying like the sequel is never going to happen? I mean,
It's a rumor.
I think the sequel will happen. I think it's going to tank because I don't think they have any idea that they on how to make a good Fantastic Four, and that might be a good reason why Fox decided to hold on to it. I mean,
It's a trap.
well, they initially had Daredevil, which Ben Affleck starred in, and it was horrible. For whatever reason, actually, I do know the story. 20th Century Fox was supposed to make a sequel. They didn't make it in time. As a result, they contractually lost the rights to Daredevil. It reverted back to Marvel. So then Marvel did what they did. They created something for Netflix and knocked it out of the park. And now 20th Century Fox has to kind of sit back and say, oh, boy, we don't know how to make a Marvel property. Well, you guys, you do. You know how to make good X-Men movies. But they saw what happened to Daredevil, something that they let slip through their fingers. And now they're thinking, Fantastic Four, do we want to let that one go? I think not.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility. Now, in light of the whole Fox Fantastic Four thing, ABC and Netflix, they're not the sole resources for Marvel content on television. There was a report on IN9 that says that Fox is currently working on a new show that's tentatively called Hellfire, and a second Marvel show for the FX channel that is currently in development, and it's called Legion. Now, Hellfire is going to be set in the late 60s, and it's going to follow a young special agent who learns that a power-hungry woman with extraordinary abilities is working with a clandestine society of millionaires known as the Hellfire Club to take over the world. And a lot of people, a lot of fans, I guess a lot of comic book fans of Marvel, they know of the Hellfire Club as they were apparently major players in the whole Dark Phoenix saga, and they continue to interact with Wolverine and his buddies, and we do meet them in the movie X-Men First Class. So,
yeah, and there was a mention of Hellfire Club in something recently too. I don't remember what it was. One of the TV shows. I don't remember whether it was Daredevil or some other thing.
Well, I don't.
Yeah, I remember something about it. Anyway.
Wow, could that? It could have been either. Ooh, that's a good question. I have to look that up. Hey, anybody out there?
It may have been Arrow. I don't know.
Oh no, it wouldn't have been Arrow. That's DC.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not Arrow, but
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
May have been. I think may have been where it was.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. But so let's put this out to you, listeners. If you know of a reference of the Hellfire Club in a TV property, let us know because obviously it would have happened prior to this agreement for Fox to develop it. It would be very interesting, especially since, well, yeah, Hellfire is more connected to the X-Men thing, so that would make it more of a 20th Century Fox property. So, yeah, if anybody out there knows about it, please let us know, too.
Yep.
Now, in one little bit of scientific news, and the only reason I want to bring this up is because we actually saw a news story about this here in Phoenix. Tesla. Yes.
Autopilot cars.
Well, yeah, Elon Musk, who is the man crush of our good friend Michael R. Meningay, he announced that the software for the Tesla Motors car, it was getting an upgrade. Version 7. It was released on Thursday, and it would allow autopilot.
Yeah.
Now, did you see the news story on this?
I did not see it. I saw a little bit of it, but not the whole thing.
There was one of the newscasters for Fox, the local Fox affiliate. She actually took a ride with someone who just got the upgrade that morning.
Wow.
And he took it up what I believe was 44th Street and was heading north from the 202. And that's how it looked. Oh, no, I'm taking it back. No, he's going up Central. And you actually saw it brake. You saw it accelerate. He was actually able to set a speed limit on that thing, and it did the rest. Now, anytime he wanted to change lanes, all he had to do was operate the turn signal, and then it would change the lanes for him. Apparently, there are sensors that completely surround the car, so it knows where all the cars are around it are located, and it even knows not to change lanes where there's a solid line.
Interesting. There was, I had a rental car on one of my trips, a number of months ago, that it was, I don't know whether it was a Buick or what it was. That's not a Buick. Anyway, the sensors in the mirrors told me when there were cars that were way behind me, and then the sensor got bigger and bigger and bigger, to indicate where the car was on the mirrors on either side. So it was kind of interesting.
What the story that we've got here, and you can see this on our website at tggeeks.com. It is the Tesla Model X and Model S. They've got 12 sensors at the bottom, a front-facing camera, and a rear-view mirror and a radar system. The keys to the driverless experience are the sensors, helping the vehicle to scan speed limit signs. So it reads the speed limit signs and automatically knows what it is. So it's even more automatic than I thought. And notify the driver when the vehicle exceeds the speed limit.
Wow, interesting.
And Tesla is planning to debut features that are more self-driving than assisting sometime in the future. There's going to be valet park mode is one such feature that can summon the car to arrive without a driver.
Interesting.
Oh, God, that's so Tony Stark. And the autopilot features are available on all of the Tesla cars, but to enable the features, customers are required to spend an additional $2,500.
Wow.
But it does look really fascinating.
Yeah,
and it's not totally driverless.
I did see one comment that it was not so good in neighborhoods.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Probably a lot. The acceleration and the deceleration are very, very abrupt from what I saw in the news story. So it's possible that it may just be very uncomfortable. And I think at that point, when you're in a neighborhood, you just want to take over manually. But I think it's more like when you're on the freeway.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think that's when you really... I wouldn't even drive it in the city. I wouldn't use it in the city. I think it's... If you're on the freeway and, it's like when we drive on I-10 and traffic is kind of light, or just average and just flowing very easily, I think that's a really good time to use that if we had it. So I think that's kind of interesting.
Could be interesting.
Yeah. So, hey, and just out of curiosity, if anybody out there has one of these things, let us know. I'd be really curious to know what you think about it.
Yeah. And last, there's a couple of nerd moments in the Flash episode of this week.
Oh, yes, the nerd moments. Yeah, that was our Flash of Two Worlds story. And there are a couple of little Easter eggs there, but there was one that just made me giggle like a little kid. Right at the very end, they've just defeated the bad guy. and they're going to rescue this one police officer who's been she was held hostage. She was rescued from a bomb. She's laying on the floor, and she just simply calls out, "Flash!" And we have both our Earth 1 and our Earth 2 flashes, although Earth 2 is not really doing a whole heck of a lot right now. He's just talking. And they just both come around this mysterious wall that's just kind of there in this old building. And they come around from the other opposite sides of it, and they both say, "Coming!" And I laugh so hard because that is so out of that comic book Flash of Two Worlds. It was just such a nerd moment for me to see something which really helped to define in totally new ways the entire DC universe put up there on the screen. And it's something like that makes me say, you guys who are running the TV shows, who are spearheading Arrow, spearheading Flash, and soon to be spearheading Supergirl, you are my kind of guys because you're fans. You are all fanboys and fangirls, and whoever's doing all the writing for this, you people know your subjects because you have been so loyal to the material as well as the fans themselves as we watch it. So, yeah, it was a huge nerd moment for me, and heck, I need more of those, please.
Yep. And we have a couple of follow-up items that we want to talk about this week. Number one, we did an article, or I wrote a review on a short film that was actually a music video, and it's about domestic violence. And Hamish Downey had sent us an email. He is a friend of our friend in Japan, Pablo Absento, who wrote and directed the short horror film. Anyway, Hamish directed this music video about domestic violence and a song by Robin Lau, and I just wanted to give a shout out here. Go to our website. We've got an article on that.
We'll have the link
short
in
film
the show notes for this.
And just domestic violence is not only one community. It can happen in the GLBTQ community, and
it can happen in any community.
Any community, and we have links to Domestic Violence Project for GLBTQ, as well as a couple of other places that you can reach out if you are in a situation for domestic violence. Also, we want to give another shout out to the Conditioning film in the UK. You can still be part of that production. They are still trying to reach their flex goal of 1,500 pounds. They're at 144%. They're at 1,081 pounds. So go over there and you can be part of an independent film.
And as we said before, there's nothing more awesome than being part of an independent film project.
Yes. Go over there and we'll have a link to that as well.
And I want to give a shout out to the Doctor Who Fancast Guide. You can not subscribe, but you can get issues and see issues of the Fancast Guide by following them on Twitter at Talking Who. We will have the link for that on our show notes. And lastly, as always, a great big shout out to the Facebook group, The Gay Geek, for allowing us to post our episodes on their Facebook page. And their URL is facebook.com/groups/The Gay Geek. And my special undying thanks to Jeremiah Reeves. You are a true scholar, gentleman, steampunk fan. You're an all-around awesome guy. Thank you for allowing us to post our shows there.
Yes, thank you. Up next time.
Do we have an interview next week?
An interview next week. We have a very exciting interview.
I'm excited about that one.
Yeah, I am too. It'll be fun. Okay, that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out the article for this webcast episode. We'll have a number of links on the page. And remember, you can comment on our Facebook page or the website, tggeeks.com, or you can leave us a voicemail, 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357 from TG Squared Studios in Phoenix. I am Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. I bid you peace.
Cheers.